I want to thank Robin for that wonderful reading and the CSL music team for the great music today. Today is our 6th week in our 13-week series on living the science of mind. And today we're talking about law. And what we're going to be exploring today is that creative order of God, Word, Law. We look at how the law can be our servant rather than our schoolmaster. And we also recognize that principles do not have to depend upon precedent. So it's important for each one of us to realize this one simple fact. There is a power in the universe and we can use it. Let me repeat that. There is a power in the universe and we can use it. But before we get into that, of course, before we get into how to expand our spiritual territory by using that power, our question for the day. What is the one choice that you can make today to know that there is an inner meaning to everything? To recognize that the creative order is God, Word, and then law. And to remember that you are one with eternal reality. And matter is spirit reduced to its greatest thinness. One more time. What is the one choice that you can make today to know there is an inner meaning to everything, to recognize creative order is God, Word, then law, and to remember you are one with eternal reality, and matter is spirit reduced to its greatest thinness. We begin our spiritual journey today by looking at Holmes' essays, the first of which was one on cause and effect. He talks about this inner meaning and the impact that our free will can have upon that cause. I love that he uses a farmer as an example because it always makes great sense to us. A farmer can plant his crop, and then in the middle of the summer, he can decide that he wants to plant something different. So the first crop that he planted doesn't really get to grow because he tills it up and he plants a new crop. So it's not like everything is predestined. We do have free will. And we can change outcome by changing what we do. If we believe in this law of cause and effect, which I do, then I think today is all about how can we take advantage of it? How can we use it to our greatest advantage? In ministerial school, I took this great class on the mind-body. And it was a course in which we looked at how our mind can actually affect our health. For example, people get sore throats because they're not willing to speak their truth. Or sometimes their shoulders are hurt because they're carrying burdens that are not theirs to carry. My professor had a great technique that he invited us to use during the course of this class. And here is what it was. Ask whatever is hurting, that throat or that shoulder, what it wants you to know. And then the key is to listen for the answer to that. Our bodies are very wise. We are individual expressions of the divine, meant to live in great health, and yet illness seems to catch up with us quite a bit. So if we listened to what our body wanted us to know and then made adjustments based upon that, we would feel a lot healthier. In the reading today, you heard Robin say this. There is an inner meaning to everything, an inside to every fact, a hidden cause within every visible effect. This cause is spirit. This cause is spirit. These words are so powerful that I wanted to spend just a little bit of time on them. Because our illnesses are the visible effects of cause. I wonder if we can truly live our daily lives knowing that there is an inner meaning to everything, and that inner meaning is spirit. In John 7:24, we read these words of Jesus. Do not judge according to appearances, but judge with righteous judgment. Jesus was talking about the law, about cause and effect. There is an inherent truth of spirit in everything. And yet, we constantly judge things by their outer appearances. While the body might appear to be filled with discontent or anger or with an ailment, there is a truth that can dissolve this discontent, that can dissolve that ailment. In his essay, Cause and Effect, Holmes wrote this: new causes bring new effects, and every sequence of cause and effect takes place in something which is greater than cause or effect. Such an attitude, from the standpoint of practicality, gives us a vision that nothing is solid, everything is moving, shifting, changing. Emerson said that even though we view the universe as a mass of solid facts, God, or the supreme cause, views it as liquid laws. For matter is spirit, reduced to its greatest thinness. Our believing that there is something greater than we are is relatively easy, I think, compared to embracing that matter is spirit, reduced to its greatest thinness. Yet reading that phrase gave me pause. It's such a significant way to look at the shifting and the changing of things, and to remind us that spirit is in even the smallest of things. We talked about that earlier in the series when I invited you to see God in everything and everyone. In the creative order of the universe, first comes God, then the Word. Our thoughts are the words we say, and then law. The law acts upon our words and our thoughts. In other words, we're back to that acronym that I love to use of AIM. When we place our attention on an intention, that's what we manifest. And you know, the truth is that we're doing that all the time, whether we do it consciously or unconsciously. When we speak about law, we're speaking about that impersonal reaction of creation that brings about form from our thoughts, from the words that we speak, from the things that we are thinking. And that's both good news and bad news. The bad news is we must become aware of what we're thinking. But the good news is that when we know this order, we can use it. Holmes, in his essay, The Sequence of the Creative Order, put it this way: if we can get this simple proposition firmly fixed in mind, simply stated, and as simply believed in, we shall see that everything surrounding us is in the nature of an effect. And effects can be changed when we set new causes in motion. Therefore, instead of being confused by the situations around us, we should be calm, tranquil, and confident that through reforming our word and changing our whole body of thinking, we can as easily change the existing conditions as perpetuate them. So let me help you with that simply stated part. In our philosophy, we have a shortcut for that complicated statement. What we think, we bring about. If we continually remind ourselves of that simple statement, we can bring about change in our lives because we can change the thoughts that we're putting into the law. Holmes was encouraging about our ability to actually bring about this change. Here's what he said. Gradually, as we reform our thoughts, they will become subjective. They will sink into that place in mind which is the power within us, and which must constitute the meeting place between the absolute cause and the relative effect which it projects. It may take time to do this, but think of the reward, the gift, the outcome. Keeping the goal in mind, refusing to be baffled or defeated, with uplifted thought and calm but definite purpose, we cannot fail. I love that we can't fail if we just keep how the law works in mind. Holmes described a man in one of his essays who was ill, and he didn't want to bother God with a prayer for him to get better because he thought it was an insignificant matter. This is human thinking because it's ignorant of how the law works. The law knows nothing of comparative degrees. It doesn't understand big or little, important or unimportant. All the law does is take the idea from the mind and bring it into fruition. Remember, what we think about, we bring about. Or another way of saying it is our thoughts become things. Our opening song was about our thoughts or prayers. Let's make our thoughts prayers. In his essay, How Does God Know What I'm Doing?, Holmes reminds us to divorce ourselves from those ideas of big and little, hard and easy, important and unimportant, can and cannot. He talks about how the rose that's blooming is just as significant as a huge mountain, and no less important than a great sequoia. Nor is the flea any less important than a big elephant. Is a sunset of less importance than an epic poem? They're just different manifestations of ideas, things that have come into being. Here's the way Holmes put it. The law always takes the form we give it. We may call it big or little, or important or unimportant, but the law as such knows nothing about comparative degrees. The very nature of this law is such that it cannot say, I am big in one place and I am little in another. It can only say, I am, and that also I am, including what we call big and little, as it automatically flows through everything, taking the form of all things. What a call to unity, to recognize that there's only one life that's God's life, that's our life right here and right now. You know, the sages and the master teachers all tried to teach us that. Jesus said, I am the I am. And Buddha said, there's no I as such apart from others. They're talking about unity. And Holmes' advice is this: comparatives do not belong to the universe. They are merely differentiations in our own mind. Dropping them completely out of our thought, we contemplate neither the big nor the little, but the thing itself taking form. Imagine what the world might look like if we truly could rid ourselves of thinking of big or little, of important or unimportant, of can or cannot. Of course, that feat would require us to let go of some of the precedent and a lot of the things that we've learned throughout the ages. It requires us that we let go of those beliefs that we have no control over our doubts or our fears or all of our uncertainties. In his essay, Getting Along with People, Holmes wrote this: I have a method which will work for you if you will let it. Just forget all the past. Forgive yourself and everyone else for everything that has ever happened. Try to feel that everyone is doing about the best he can. Come to realize that while you were born into this world through your parents, you really are a spirit. You really are born out of life. The thing that entered into you when you were born was God, the living spirit. Why not get back to the true center of your being and think and act and live from the point of view that you are one with everything because you are one with God? And again, to take those words to heart, we have to recognize that today does not have to follow precedent. In Galatians 3:24-25, we read this: Wherefore the law was our schoolmaster to bring us unto Christ, that we may be justified by faith. But after that faith is come, we are no longer under a schoolmaster. In other words, when we're ignorant of the law and how it works, we may use it incorrectly or maybe even destructively. I talked last week about examining your limiting thoughts. I want to expand that concept this week to talk about race consciousness, the collective consciousness that has us believe that something that's always been done a certain way must continue to be done that way. And the great example I like to use is the little girl that comes up and says, Mama, why are you cutting off the end of the ham? And she said, well, because my mama did it that way, and her mama did it that way, and so on and so forth. The truth is that way back when, the pots were smaller, so they had to cut off the end of the ham in order to make it fit in the pot. And yet, this is something that was handed down from generation to generation. Just cut off the end of the ham and then put it in the pot. Even though we have bigger pots now, we don't have to be bound by precedent. That example might sound silly, and yet it seems like a lot of time we run our spiritual lives bound by precedent. We're probably taught somewhere along the way that we should save our prayers for the big stuff. Don't bother God with the little stuff. But we should bother God with the small things because remember, the law doesn't know anything about big or little. So if something comes into mind and we think that we should pray about it because that don't bother God with the little things is just hogwash. Remember, here's the order: God, Word, Law. Have you ever considered ridding yourselves of those race consciousness thoughts that have you living with limited beliefs? What our philosophy teaches us is that there are no small things. And in his essay on principle and precedent, Holmes gives us a straightforward process that actually works. I invite you to try it. Here's a summary for you. First, start with a firm conviction that we're dealing with a power which is not bound. A power that is not bound. Remember last week when I asked you if you truly believed that God was limited? We're dealing with God here. Start with a firm conviction that we're dealing with a power that is not bound. And once we can do that, the second step is to assure ourselves that we have access to that power. Now, again, we talked last week. God is right within us. It's not external, it's internal. So assure yourself that you have access to that power. The third step is identify yourself with the power. Use this simple mantra: I am one with the power, or I am one with the divine. Whatever you need to do to remind yourself that you are one with that power. And step 4 is consciously increase our expectation and deepen our realization. Now here's where practice comes in. If we're going to consciously increase our expectations and deepen our realization, we're going to have some spiritual practices. Maybe it's meditation, maybe it's daily affirmations, maybe it's just sitting down and communicating with God in your own manner on a regular basis, not haphazard basis, but regular basis. It's essential that we increase that what we believe is possible. We need to increase what we believe is possible. And we can do that if we remember that with God, all things are possible. I think the most exciting thing is that when we follow these steps and when we recognize that we can expand our spiritual territory to thoughts that aren't limited by generations and generations of former beliefs, when we realize that the law in the universe is not trying to limit us, that the law is no longer the schoolmaster, we've made the law our servant. We've learned how to use it, how to ask it to do things for us, and lo and behold, they happen. We can learn how to direct the law so that we manifest what we want to have happening in our lives. Isn't that better than being ignorant of the way it works or bumbling around in your life? We can release ourselves from that prison of our limiting beliefs and expand our own spiritual territory. Here's how Holmes put it. The mind must work alone, increasing its own fear, reaffirming its own position, awakening in itself to the greater influx. Just as surely as we do this, we shall find that the prison walls of the lesser self begin to crumble. The horizon of experience begins to push itself further away. And because more spiritual territory is taken in, greater experiences are bound to follow. So in summary, decide this week to use the law, to fully embrace the power that you have to create. There is an inner meaning to everything. Remember, there is an inherent truth of spirit in everything, and it allows us to dissolve our fears and dis-ease. Matter is spirit reduced to its greatest thinness. The creative order is God, Word, Law. Remember to think, I am. What we think about, we bring about. The law knows nothing of big or small, important or unimportant. So think big. You are one with eternal reality. We're dealing with an unlimited power to which we have access and with which we can identify and consciously use. We can make the law our servant. There is a power of the universe and we can use it. So here's your affirmation for the week. How is it that I so easily and willingly make the choice today to know that there is an inner meaning to everything, To recognize creative order is God, Word, then law, and to remember I am one with eternal reality, and matter is spirit reduced to its greatest thinness. So make a conscious choice this week to notice spirit in everything. To notice when you're judging things as big or little, unimportant or important, and to awaken yourself to the truth. There is a power in the universe, and you can use it. So let go of the past and embrace all the spiritual territory that you want. Let's pray. So just taking a deep, nourishing breath, knowing that right where we are, this God of love and compassion and peace and ease and grace is flowing in through and as each of us, that we are indeed one with that spirit, one with that eternal reality. And what I know is that each of us is recognizing this week that we can use the law. We can be conscious of it, conscious of our thoughts and how we are creating what we see in our lives. So I am so grateful. I'm so grateful for this philosophy, for the ability for us to know that the God without is the God within each of us, and that there is a power in the universe, and we can use it. And it's from all that gratitude that I release these words into the law of mind, spirit, and action, knowing the truth that God has already called it done, already said yes, already said yes, yes, yes. So I can just say amen, and we can affirm it together. And so it is. And I want to thank everybody that continues to donate to our community, to allow us to just keep bringing you these messages, to allow us to spread this fabulous philosophy. Enjoy our offertory song.